Hello, this video today will be covering how to do a water pump replacement on a 2003 Dodge Dakota. Now this does apply to other models and possibly the Durango and Ram. What we have here is actually a 4.7 liter V8. Now first, starting with the passenger side here, what you want to start by doing is you want to empty the reservoir tank here for the washer fluid itself. Unless you have some way of plugging it off, the fluid will actually just come out of the pump there. So start by removing the hose. Then what you want to do is remove the connector on the top here. Now the connectors here are just simple, squish the tabs on the side there and it'll just pop off the clip there. You want to start by removing this level sensor here. Then you'll have one 10mm bolt on each side, two in total. The one down here is right by the AC line here. It's right in there. You use a 6-inch extension to get to that. Now for the other side, what we want to start by doing is removing the hose here for the reservoir tank itself for the coolant system. And again, you'll have a 10mm bolt on this side, just located right in there. And you use the same thing, a 6-inch extension to remove that. And the reservoir tank should just pull out by itself. Once you remove the coolant tank itself, what you want to watch for here is the hose on the bottom, which goes to the reservoir tank. It'll catch on the rad hose itself, so you just want to pull it out of the way there. And you can see here where the one bolt goes. And when you continue on to the other side over here, you'll see right here on the back side, this is where actually the other bolt goes. Now for draining the coolant out of the system, what you want to do here is, it's a little harder to see on the camera here, but actually down on the bottom, this is the driver's side I'm looking at, there's a little nub that sticks out here, and the plug to actually take out is just underneath that. What I did is, in order to get to that plug, what I have here is actually a Stampede Edition Dodge Dakota, so it does actually have the extra ground effects on it, which may cause some problems. I'm not sure if you have any other problems in any other models itself. Just to make it easier, the rad is held in by two 10mm bolts itself on the top here, right on the rad support. So you want to remove those. Then what I actually did is, it's actually nice to have a second person around. I had them just lift up the whole rad assembly itself, and I actually slid my hand in through the top side here and around, and just used a small adjustable wrench just to get it loose. Now for draining it out, what you want to have is the pan just directly underneath there. There's actually no spot for direct access to that plug itself because of the ground effects. So what you'll have to do is actually angle the pan in such a way so it actually does drain onto the plastics itself and then into the pan. Now in order to pull the plug out, you just have to pull it straight out. It's just a quarter turn style plug here. What I actually did is I went from the back side here, picking up the rad, just went in with the pair of needle nose pliers, and just pulled it straight out that way because it's actually fairly hard to get my hand in there. Now as for the pail, it's kind of sitting like that under there, so hopefully that works out. Now it depends, I guess, how your vehicle is sitting on the pavement or wherever you have it parked, depending what the angle is, how the coolant will go up. This is what I actually found for the best spot for myself here. Now in order to remove the clutch fan assembly from the water pump itself, what you want to do is actually leave the belt on here, so it does have a way of locking the pulley in place here to loosen this nut. Now in order to loosen this, what I actually have here is an adjustable wrench, and just to jar it loose, you'll want to hit this so it's in the counterclockwise direction itself, so it actually turns this way. I just hit it with a hammer on this side here, which will actually loosen it. Now if that doesn't necessarily work, what you can also use is actually a punch down in here to hit on the flat side of the nut itself. And this will actually loosen it. Now this works if you're not keeping the clutch fan itself here, and also if you're not replacing the water pump itself. So you just simply just take a big punch here, just hit it, and then just hit it with a hammer on top here. So what this will actually do is just jar it loose also. It's just the same type of principle as an impact gun itself. Now if both those methods don't actually work, or if you are keeping the clutch fan itself, what you'll want to do is remove the water pump itself. I believe there is enough room in there to slide it out, and this is a shallow water pump itself. The impellers are only about 3/4 of an inch deep, so you should be able to slide that off the casting there, and you should have enough room here. Now we have taken the bolts out of the fan, or the rads itself, so it should just push forward slightly just to give you a little extra room. Now in order to remove the serpentine belt off, what you have here is the idler pulley. It takes a 15mm wrench. What you want to do is actually turn that clockwise so it actually does loosen the tension off here. And you just want to pull it off the water pump itself like so. And there you have it. Now it is normally easier to pull off the water pump because you actually don't have a lip and you don't actually have the ridges like you would do on an alternator or any of the other accessories on the engine itself. Now once you've removed the serpentine belt, what we want to start moving on to is now this idler here. Now this does take a 15 mil wrench itself in order to loosen the bolt in the center here to take it off. This does need to be removed in order to get access to the one of the bolts in behind here that holds on the water pump assembly. Now while you do have the serpentine belt off, one thing I like to make note of here, just a quick maintenance check here, you just want to check the both the tensioner pulley here and the idler pulley for any play. Now if you do have any play in the pulleys, normally what you'll feel them is shake back and forth like this one actually does right here. So you'll actually see the play in it itself. Sometimes you can give them a little spin too just to see if they spin freely to make sure the bearings are still okay in them. As you can see here, we've already started to remove the bolts out of the pump itself here on the vehicle. Now what you want to do here is before you start taking all the bolts out and just throw them into a bucket, you want to check what all the length of the shoulders are here. You can see this one here is actually a fairly long one. You get one down to the bottom here, it's only a short one. I guess the best thing what I would recommend to do is actually have your new pump assembly just laying out on the bench somewhere or even on the tailgate of your vehicle. And after you take each one of these bolts out, just place it in the same spot you saw. Once the bolts are all out of the pump itself, you can take the pump off the block then, and then just simply take those bolts, switch them over to the old pump itself, and then get ready to prepare to put your new pump on. Now once you've removed all the bolts in the pump itself, now you actually already got the pump off here. Normally what happens is the pump will actually stick to the casting itself. You just want to take your just the handle of your hammer and just give it a tap on the side of the pulley itself. It'll just jar it loose. Now you also want to make sure your bucket is directly underneath the front of your block here because there's still quite a bit of coolant in there, so it will come spewing out. Now for applying the new O-ring in place here around the seal, you just want to make sure you don't get any dirt around where the seal goes here, so if you do, just wipe it out. What I did here, I just applied a little bit of Vaseline inside there and on the outside of the O-ring here, so when it does actually go onto the engine block itself, it won't bind up and cause any sealing problems, which can cause leaking for around the pump area. Now before you mount on the new water pump, what you want to do is just simply go around where the pump actually meets the surface on the block itself and just clean it with a piece of scotch brite or just like an abrasive type pad. Don't be using a scraper or anything like that because you actually will put scratches in the surface which could possibly cause problems for leaking in the future. So that's something to keep in mind. When you do mount the new water pump on, you actually don't need any silicone to be used on this. Once you get your pump on the engine here, what you want to make sure of is that your pump is seated all the way around here, and when tightening these bolts up, you want to do a crisscross pattern here and not tighten them up all the way, just to make sure the O-ring in behind there is seated actually properly and isn't pushing out on one side, which will cause a leak. Now once you install the pump on, you want to make sure all your bolts are tightened up all the way to the outside there, just to make sure everything's all snugged up against the casting, the seals are in place. Now there is actually no way checking for any leaks at this present moment, because you will have to put everything back together, fill the system back up with coolant, and then bleed the system to ensure all the air is out of it, and then determine if there's any leaks in there. Next, what we want to move on to here is installing the idler pulley back on, putting the serpentine belt. Now, if you're doing a job like this, it's always good to put a new serpentine belt on, especially if it hasn't been replaced in a while. This can take somewhat of a tedious task here, so it's always good to just do a preventative maintenance just to make sure you won't have any problems down the road if your belt breaks and then you'll be stranded on the side of the highway. After that, you want to install your reservoir tank here, bolt your rad back up, and before you do fill it with coolant, you want to make sure that your drain is in place. You don't want to put new coolant in there and then find out it's on the ground after that. At the end of the video then, I'll show you how to bleed the system of air. Now if you are replacing the mechanical clutch fan assembly itself here, in order to remove the fan itself, they're going to be 4 13mm bolts. I've already removed them here. Now what's happened to this one here is actually the bearing's gone in it, so it does need to be replaced just to prevent any future problems from happening. And simply remove the fan like so, switch over to the new assembly, and that's all you need to do. And when you're setting the reservoir tank back in, now on the bottom sides, because this is like a 2-piece shield what we have around the fan here, the fan shroud itself, you'll see there's like little alignment holes on each side. You want to just make sure when you're setting the reservoir tank back in, they align with the bottom of the fan shroud itself. Now when tightening up the valve at the bottom of the rad here, what you want to do is that is a quarter turn valve on the bottom here, so you want to make sure it's straight up and down, which means it's tightened. Now we're filling the system up with coolant itself here. Now there's two types of options you have. You can buy a straight concentrated antifreeze, it just comes in a jug, and you can mix it yourself, or you can buy a 50-50 mix. What the 50-50 mix includes is 50% antifreeze and 50% water. Now if you are mixing it yourself, what you want to use is distilled water. Now if you do use tap water, the issues are with that is that it actually does have some additives in the tap water itself, which could possibly plug up your coolant system or create the aluminum in your coolant system to actually corrode, so which will cause future problems down the road. So that is why it is recommended to get distilled water. Now when filling up the system itself here, normally what sometimes it does help to do if you squish the rad hoses a little bit, normally the lower rad hose just down at the bottom there, it just helps push any air which might be in the system just to get it ahead of time before you actually start the vehicle. And once you top it up full of coolant, now what you want to do is actually start your vehicle up. Now you want to actually leave the rad cap loose, don't fully tighten it up. You'll leave it running for about I would say roughly about a half an hour in order for your motor to be up to full operating temperature, and to make sure that the thermostat is open so the coolant is fully running through all the system and does remove any of the air bubbles or anything. Any of the air bubbles will come to the highest point of the coolant system itself, which is the rad here. That is why you leave actually the cap loose. I don't normally recommend to actually leave the cap fully off, because what will happen is if it does expand the coolant, it'll come over the top here and actually spill into your engine bay itself, so that's something you just want to keep in mind. Now this is it for my tutorial video. If you have any comments or questions, please don't hesitate to post them. And if you want to keep up to date with any future videos that I post, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching.